Hello to all the single ladies and to all the single gents too. So I'm single and I read a book about marriage. And so I want to motivate you to do the same. So here it goes. First of all, I have to just say right off the bat that I never wanted to be that person. I never wanted to be the person that, as being single, was either obsessed or was thinking about getting married or marriage, right? Being like in a couple. I never wanted to be obsessed. With the exception of watching Say Yes to the Dress, that's like as far as I would go. But I would never buy the books. I would never buy the magazines. I would never, other than that, go into any sort of weddings or anything like that. Um, and then I've seen the number of friends and family members that are getting divorced, and I'm kind of like, ugh. Like, I don't want to be one of those persons, and I don't want to contribute to that specific statistic. So, for that reason, and for that reason alone, I said, you know what? I best start studying ahead of time. I want to know the brownie points I can get. And I also had another thought, and this is I'm an engineer, so I actually graduated with an engineering degree. I am a licensed, or kind of, it's a two-step process. So I have the first license as an engineer, and then I went to grad school, and then I became like a manager, and so I just went on and on and on and on. And so the thought that I had is that, they would never commission me to build or design a site or a place or a building or a bridge or whatever, what have you, without me actually having the degree, without me actually having gone through all the little years of studying and taking the test and doing all of these things. Because if I didn't do all of that, the whole thing would just blow up in my face and there would be some casualties along the way. So, for that reason and that reason alone, it's like I had to make sure that I went through the whole process, getting a degree, passing the little test, and then actually getting the job. And then I realized, like, you know what? I bet with marriage, it has to be a little bit the same. Because what I've noticed is that just recently I had a friend say that, oh my gosh, if only I knew, if only somebody had told me, if only somebody could have prepared me for this. So surely I thought, well, you know what? If finding a spouse is like looking for a job, then I best get to studying. And so, I read me a marriage book. And I'm thinking you should start doing the same. So at first, when I picked up Love and Respect, I've had it, let me say, for about 2 or 3 years. And I always thought, I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till maybe the person comes along. Maybe I'm going to wait till there's like a nice little ring on this little finger. And maybe I'll get to reading. Um, and then the divorces started happening. And I was like, I best pick up the book because the longer you wait as a single person, the less time you want to spend getting this thing wrong, right? So in my case, I kind of want to get it right. So I want to make sure that I do all the studying that I can ahead of time. I want to be well prepared for the test, and I want to make sure that I pass with flying colors. So I went ahead and I picked up Love and Respect, and I started reading it. So the title is Love and Respect, but the subtitle is The Love She Most Desires and the Respect He Desperately Needs. And it was very it was kind of eye-opening. So because I think the author does something. First of all, as I was reading the book and I was kind of going through it, I'm like, gosh dang, like he has so many testimonies. Like I think 33% of the book is just testimonies upon testimonies upon testimonies of like letters and emails and things that people write to him and send to him. And at first I'm like, why do we need all this? Like, why do you got to tell me about the business of everybody else and like how they applied it and how they did and how they made it and da 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 and all their conflict and all this. And then I realized something, that if it wouldn't be because of those testimonies, a lot of us will be tempted to be like, this stuff doesn't work. Like, what is the point of all of this? And so I thought, you know what? Yes, go ahead and use 33% of the book to include all of the testimonies, because in the end, maybe that just kind of solidifies it for some of the readers. So I was like, okay, I'm going to forgive that. But there's a couple of things that I thought were pretty interesting. So obviously the love part, that's all for us, right? So how should we as females be experiencing the love? And I was like, I kind of like that. That's kind of nice. However, the most eye-opening part was for me reading about the male perspective and the respect that he desperately needs. And then, as I was reading and kind of learning about the two sides of the equation, I realized something. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of like the man. And let me explain. So, whenever my mom and my sister would always talk to me, I immediately go into problem solving mode. So I would always be like, well, this is what we need to do, and this is what you need to do. And I would start researching, and I would do, and it would irk the living Jesus out of them. Like they hate it so so much. And then to the point that my sister especially, she's a therapist, so she would always point it out, like just listen, just take it all in. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the point? Like if you're gonna come with a problem to me, then I'm like, let's solve this thing out. um and that's just like a man, right? The man is put on earth to solve problems. That's why when God created Adam, he said, go and name the animals and go work the land and go and solve it, right? So that's his part. And then I'm like, dang, like I'm kind of like that. So I dialed it back some. And I think it's been good. So I hope that they can give testimony to how much better I've gotten at just listening instead of problem solving. So that was one thing. Then the other thing was that I was like, if the man needs that much respect, then I'm like, how can I start practicing that now? How can I show respect to the men in my life? And then I started thinking like, well, I can practice with my dad, I can practice with my brother, and any sort of male friends that I have, I can always practice with them too. So I started just communicating just a little bit differently and just kind of highlighting a couple of things that I thought, well, they might, appreciate that, just kind of dropping those little nuggets. And I was like, you know what? That's not so bad. Now, why do I mention this? Because that's exactly the point that he makes. He says that what we as women need to do is to just show respect. But the respect, we cannot expect for the male to earn it. We have to give the respect unconditionally. And that kind of like, I don't think we kind of like that part. And he drives that point home. He really specifically says how we as women struggle with that idea, because we always have the notion of, well, he needs to earn my respect. So I'm like, dang, like we need to chill, ladies, like just bring it down a notch. Then I also, as I was reading it, I remember something. There was a leader at church, a good friend, and she was like amazing. And one of the things she would always say that whenever we would, so as single, young adults, we would always get together, and it was like, no matter how many times you meet with the same people, if everybody's single, we're all gonna end up talking about the same thing. What are you looking for in someone of the opposite sex? And so the question would always come, no matter what we were doing, no matter where we were, whether we were eating ice cream, having dinner, if we just finished watching a movie, or we were just hanging out at somebody's house. But then I noticed that whenever we start discussing this, some of the guys would always make a point to say, well, I want a woman that would clean and cook and iron and like do the laundry and like do all of these things, right? And so the ladies would always be like, no, like, female revolution. They were like, no, I am not your maid, and da 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 da, and they would be so argumentative to the point that it was kind of like, whoa, like step back. And so the interesting thing is that, this leader, this friend, she kind of advised everybody. She goes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to just be like, yes, like I'm gonna clean, I would cook, I would iron, I would do the laundry, like, yes, I'm gonna take care of you. Because at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is put out that persona of being a person that is constantly kind of like, you're ready to like go into a brawl. You don't want to be that person. So as I was reading the book, I remember that, because I think that even in that point, that's setting a precedent of just like how you would show respect to the opposite sex. Now, that doesn't mean that just because like you can tell everybody you're gonna do that, but once you're in your own house behind closed doors, you can do whatever the heck you want, as long as it's respectful. Just remember that. So it reminded me of that, and so I've had a lot of conversations with female friends that kind of irks them, and so I feel like if only they will learn how to express themselves in that little area, maybe they wouldn't be single anymore. I'm just saying. And so that was something that I thought. Now, why I never wanted to read the book also is because there's that verse in the Bible. I'm going to look it up for you. In Ecclesiastes 3, verse 5, the second part, it says, "Do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." And I'm like, oh, like, so I'm always very cautious not to do things out of timing, right? Because timing is everything. And so I thought I'm going to best use my time right now to prepare as best as I can. So when the time comes, we're not going to be wasting any time, boo. So to my future husband, if you're watching this, please just do yourself the favor and read something. I would start, and I would say maybe start with this one. You know, just you know, just like just gonna put it out there. Maybe read it because I believe we don't have a lot of time to waste. So anyhow, Love and Respect. I recommend it. I think it's a good read. Some people are going to be tempted to say, well, no, that really doesn't apply. I'm really not like that, or da 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 da. But in the end, I think what we need to start realizing is in God's design, how were we designed? What are the things what are some of the desires that God put in us as ladies and as gentlemen that we can best interact with each other? One more thing. I think the best thing we can do as single ladies is to really, and gentlemen too, the best thing we can do, I think, right now is learn how to conversate and maybe manage conflict. And I think he does a good job at kind of advising on like how to get better at that. Because we women, we can be very petty, and when we start getting petty, we're not very respectful. So yeah, we got to check our pettiness sometimes, and we got to check our level of respect for our male counterparts. So I recommend it. As if you're a female, I especially recommend it to you. If you're a male, you know what? Just do yourself a favor. Read it. It's gonna do you. It's gonna do you good. But yeah, I think these are just some of the reasons why it will serve some of you single people, some of you single friends, to read a couple of marriage books before, not after. You're kind of in the middle of the whole marriage situation. You don't even know what to do. Just avoid it altogether. And lastly, the thought that I have is, those verses in the Bible where it talks about he who finds a wife finds, you finish the phrase, but he who finds a wife, right? So I've heard pastors say to the ladies specifically, if you want a husband, behave like a wife. So I'm like, yes, this is great. But you know what? I believe that the Proverbs 31 woman, that she's not formed after she walks down the aisle. I think if you're going to be a Proverbs 31 woman, that starts now. That starts before you get the ring. That starts before you even meet the person. Develop the character, do the studying, prepare yourself, because you don't want this whole situation later on to blow up in your face and for there to be any casualties. So please, 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 please. If we're going to dial it back on some of the separations and divorces down the line, then I think the best thing we can do is do a little bit of reading now ahead of time. The better prepared we are, the better I believe we're going to enjoy those situations. So I don't know. Tell me if you've read it. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you not? But at the end of the day, what books maybe have you read as a single person that talk about marriage that you feel like, you know what, this gave me some good insights and they kind of helped me as a single person to be a better person? So leave them on the comments below and be sure to subscribe for any more book reviews. So until next time, I'll see you. Bye bye.